if we're wanting to de-escalate the war, why have we sent major aircrafts and major military deployments to the area of Russia and Ukraine? Are we truly preparing for World War III? Even though we say we don't want it, EU is pushing for it. They're telling their people to get go bags ready and prepare for 72 hours without goods and stockpile. Also, we're going to talk about the Tesla takedowns. Now, why do I want to bring this up? 24 businesses, 24 organizations are behind paying protesters to do this. Why are these people allowed to do this? Why are they allowed to pay for people to bust and break down things? It's almost like a proxy war. I mean, they're literally proxying people, paying them to cause mischief in the streets. Do we really want these in the cities? This goes along with something else. But Doge finds tens of billions of dollars of fraud. Why have we not seen not one of those persons thrown in jail for committing fraud? Isn't it amazing of what we're actually seeing? And then lastly, we're going to talk about a warning to Christians. We're seeing something happen in Kansas. And actually, really persecution versus people in Kansas. Now, Kansas is not some liberal state. It's a pretty conservative state. But we need to heed the warning, because what if we start seeing this more and more across our nation? Who's going to stand up for us? Will our government or not? Would you be worthy of the persecution? Are you standing up for your faith? Let's dive into these stories today. This video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for being here. Again, we're humbled by your presence each and every day, and we thank you for allowing us to be in your homes. We love being able to speak to you. This kind of gives me an outing. I love being able to share, and I hope that I can do it for days, weeks, months, years to come, and we hope that you're enjoying it. Not only learning, but gaining wisdom, and hopefully seeing the world in a little bit different view to say, you know what, we should be prepared for that. We should be seeing what's happening. Sometimes these stories are not being told to us, and we need to know about them. And that is true. First, let's talk about exactly just that. Now, we're hearing the toned down rhetoric from America saying that, whoa, no, we're not wanting World War III. We want to have peace. Well, if that's the case, there's a new report that came out that said Trump is extremely ticked off with Putin. And you're like, okay, well, there's just part of negotiations. Not only that, if we're not preparing for it and we don't want it, we're wanting peace, why are we moving military, heavy deployed ships, and some of our best aircrafts over to this area? But why is the U.S. and EU feverishly preparing for World War III? Now, we heard about the go bags. We heard about the 72-hour stockpile that Europe is pushing their people because of the chance of war. Unbelievable. This is a story from Michael Schneider. It says, is there going to be peace in the Middle East? Well, probably not, because we haven't had it. Is there going to be peace in Europe? We would hope so. However, what has taken place? We keep being told that everything is going to be okay and that everything is fine and that the West is not actually wanting to go to war. However, the moves that we're making continue to indicate war is actually coming. According to Newsweek, the United States has significantly increased the military presence in the Middle East, along with increasing their presence in the seas around this area and further east. It says the U.S. has significantly increased the military presence not only in the Indian Ocean, but the Gulf, deploying B-2 stealth bombers, cargo planes, and aerial refueling tankers alongside key assets like the USS Carl Vinson and USS Harry Truman. Most of these are monster aircraft carriers that house warplanes. I'm particularly concerned about the deployment of highly advanced B-2 stealth bombers for these regions in the Middle East and then going over towards Europe. It says, for those who do not know, Afghanistan was relentlessly bombed by the U.S. assets based out of Diego Garcia. The invasion happened around 2001. Listen to this. It says, currently the U.S. only possesses 20 B-2 stealth bombers. And what we just found out is 25% of them have just been moved to Diego Garcia. Are we seeing an uptick again back in the Middle East? Not just with the Houthi, with the Israel-Gaza situation. Not with them. The threats with Iran. Iran said they're not going to speak to the U.S. about any kind of peace negotiations. Now, speaking about the Middle East is almost of biblical proportions and biblical warnings here. But again, while we're dealing with something like that that's kind of prophetic, let's talk about what just happened in Kansas. It says, Tommy exclusive. thousands of Christians counter a Satanist black mass at the Kansas state capitol. Now what was happening was this group was trying to push back on Christianity. And so what they were doing was pushing their rights upon having this at the state capitol. Now here's where I struggle with this. I know people say, oh, it's freedom, it's freedom, freedom. When your freedom causes problems and mischief, I don't know if that's no more longer freedom. And here's where I say again, just like the Sharia law situation in Texas, if your freedom, quote unquote freedom, causes mischief and problems for other Americans, demeaning women, demeaning other religions, death to America, okay, that's not necessarily freedom anymore. I'm sorry. So you may not like that, but that's where you have to be very careful, and that's why I say I'm a conservative libertarian. I'm not a purist when it comes to libertarianism, because we can't just be a moral relativist where we think that everything's just what everybody says it is. Everything's free long as we can all do it, and long as I'm not bothering you, I'm free. No, that's not the case. A Satanist. I mean, think about that now. The warning comes out to Christians as saying, look, we have an obligation. This nation was set up on Christian values, Judeo-Christian values, no matter if you don't want to believe in it or not. It was set up on the core conviction of God-honoring America. And we always put that on everything that we have. God bless America. You know, America, the beautiful is America is based on godly principles, all those things. So now we have a state capitol allowing this to take place. And I know what they're doing. They're scared. They're like, well, we can't tell these people they can't do it. Well, you better. Because what we're doing is we're actually seeing the fall of our nations. Listen to this. It says, when a tiny band of self-proclaimed Satanists announced that they would be holding a black mass in front of the Kansas state capitol, they wanted to inflame Christians. They did not understand what they actually did. They managed to galvanize thousands of Christians to stand against them. Why were they able to have this rally or have this mass, quote-unquote mass, in front of the Capitol or in the Capitol? Because politicians are too weak to actually say no. It's amazing how they can tell Christians not to go to church during 2020, but they will allow black mass of a Satanist to have it at their Capitol. And here's what I like to hear. And this is why, again, I say warning to Christians. Would you be willing to go stand against them? They said hundreds and even thousands that did. Now the question is, first of all, if your government will let you down like that, they'll tell you can't go to church during 2020 because it's dangerous, but we will allow Satanists to come into our capital because they have that freedom. The warning is all around you. It's kind of like the biblical warning we just talked about with the escalation in the war with the Middle East. What we're seeing is people may start seeing some pushback, and this is where I kind of heeded a warning yesterday. If you heard me about the Republicans, I believe that the Republicans are looking stronger. I believe we have a very good freedom-minded, oriented group of Republicans. The sad thing is I don't know if they're Christ-honoring. So at some point, I'm scared that the Christian conservative will be left out as a minority to both parties. Let's go back to it. 2020, they told you couldn't go to church. That wasn't freedom, that was protection. That's what you heard. However, now we're allowing Satanists to come into capitals. I'm glad to see Christians stand up. Now the question is, would you be willing to stand up? Because when the politicians didn't, guess what? The men of God did. Something to think about. I think it's becoming very prophetic what we're actually seeing. The fall of our dollar coming to digitized currencies. The fact that we're starting to go back to war again in the Middle East and in the eastern part of Europe and making this axis alignment with all these powers that are biblically warned against us. And here we are escalating to World War III. All those things are really becoming almost biblical warnings and prophetic warnings. No prophecy. I'm not trying to prophesy nothing like that. I'm just saying these things are almost foreshadowing of exactly what we've learned for so long that's happening literally in the Bible. It's amazing to me. Now let's talk about the Tesla takedown. This big push of just destroying Elon Musk. Listen to this. Ex-Wall Street journalist revealed 24 organizations funding Tesla takedown. 24 organizations. Democrats unleashed their coordinated NGO-driven color revolution. Now, what you don't realize is these organizations, a lot of them are nonprofits and getting tax benefits by supporting terrorists on American businesses. Also, getting tax money with these NGOs to promote against Elon. Remember, they're mad at him for literally trying to find waste, fraud, and abuse. Is that not just, it's still mind-numbing to me. It says nationwide problems were happening notably on Saturday, which was, again, a few days ago. What we saw was a bunch of liberals trying to cause mayhem and panic at these dealerships. Wall Street Journal says 24 organizations did pay for this. What Joe Rogan actually brought attention to it, he said it's almost like we're doing a rent-a-rider and we're renting a protester. He said some of these guys are making $400 just to show up. Some of them are even making up to $1,000 just to simply show up, not knowing actually what they're protesting, but knowing they've been paid for by NGOs and foundations and a lot of the Democratic operatives. Unbelievable. Joe Rogan calls out the Democrats for paying people to show up at these rallies, saying, if we really wanted to get down to it, who is funding these and why are we not bringing more persecution against them and prosecution against them? People like Pam Bondi, she'll go on Fox News, but will she actually get to the bottom of this? I love what John Rich said here. He says, how can Doge find tens of billions of dollars in fraud, but no one has been arrested for committing fraud? If I defrauded someone, I would be immediately charged and detained. Why have we not seen it? Elon Musk reposted both of those things with the Tesla takedown and also brought attention to this. He says it's amazing how we're bringing attention to it. We're showing the fraud. We're showing the waste. We're showing the corruption. Not one person's been arrested. So billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars of fraud, and not one person's been arrested. Kind of reminds me of those Epstein files that we're supposed to hear about, where no one's been found guilty of anything. Ghislaine Maxwell must have been trafficking by herself because no one else was found guilty of it. Isn't that amazing how we forget these things and we forget these stories? But the truth is, we have taxpayer-funded people and tax relief-funded groups literally paying people to bring mischief and mayhem into the cities and bust down and burn down buildings. Doesn't that remind you of the riots of 2020? I mean, why are we allowing this to take place? I thought this was supposed to be a different attorney general. I thought we were supposed to see better leadership from the FBI. Not hating on them. I'm just saying, let's hold them accountable and let's say, why are you not doing anything about this? 24 NGOs. If Wall Street Journal can find out who those 24 NGOs are, why can't you find out who those 24 NGOs are and go after them? Wouldn't you think that would be the wisest thing to get these people off the roads and quit tearing down American businesses? And also, just because the guy's wanting to find waste, fraud, and abuse. And when he finds it, Congress doesn't codify it, and no arrests have been made yet. I mean, look at that map. That's all the places that they organize Tesla takedowns. I mean, that's all over the United States. That was called their Global Day of Action. Now, to be honest with you, it was pretty weak and inept. But who paid for all those people to go? Who's those 24 NGOs? And why are we not following more about that? Why are we not finding out more about it? Now let's go to the last story, and because this is a big one. Again, I told you about April 2nd and how dangerous it's going to be because it could really change the world because of the tariffs really kicking in. Listen, this is from the Kobayashi letter. It says, breaking, President Trump's team is weighing broader and higher tariffs ahead of Wednesday's reciprocal tariff deadline, per Wall Street Journal. It says President Trump is reportedly weighing in across-the-board hikes up to 20%. Again, April 2nd is not the end of the tariffs. It is just the beginning. I want you to listen to what Chamath Palihapitiya said. I just learned that globally, the total stimulus injected into the economies worldwide for the past 4 years was $16 trillion. All this fake money needs to be shaken out of the economy for us to know where we are really at. You know why Trump is doing something unprecedented with the tariffs? You know why 6.1 billion people in America are delinquent on their mortgages? You know why we're in a money crunch? Because we just printed $16 trillion worldwide to give us fake assurance in economies that were held up. You know why the EU is wanting more? Because $16 trillion is unacceptable. Because we can't keep spending money like this and think everything's going to be okay. We can't find the waste, fraud, and abuse and Congress not to codify it and not to stop spending and think everything's going to be okay. We are literally seeing just major ramifications. And I think what Trump is trying to do on April 2nd, I think what Trump is trying to show us with these tariffs is it doesn't matter how hard it's going to be. If we don't do this, if we don't find another way, if we don't figure out how to do a reset when it comes to our money, we won't have any money, not just in America, but around the world. Did you hear what Chamath said? $16 trillion over 4 years. That's $4 trillion worth of waste that they stimulated economies that was all fake. Wasn't real economic growth. So all the GDPs, all the markets look great. It was all fake money. What happens when all that comes home to roost? You know when they say the chickens are coming home to roost? What happens when all that goes even more delinquent, like the mortgages and the auto loans right now? You know, the delinquency in credit cards is up higher than it's ever been. This is from the last quarter of 2024. What we're starting to see is we're starting to see it bust and fray at the seams. I think what Trump is trying to do is do something very unprecedented and reinvigorating our economy and resetting our economy, because he knows if he doesn't reset it and change the way we look at tariffs and change the way that we think of money, we're going to see our economy falter. Chamath's a billionaire. He's been innovative all his life. He's an entrepreneur, made a lot of businesses. When you have billionaires like that bringing up the fact that the dangers of this economy, things are getting serious. All right, guys, that's it for the night. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know your thoughts on April 2nd. Let me know your thoughts on the preparing for World War III. I mean, this is some pretty big deals that we're flying all these jets over to the Middle East. We're putting more carriers in the Gulf, but not only in the Gulf, closer to the Eastern European areas. Why are we doing all this? Why are we escalating if we're saying we want peace? Is it all just a sign of just saying, hey, you know what? You better sign this peace agreement because we're going to put ships at your back door? I don't know. But personally, I don't like it. And I don't think that we're actually doing the right thing. So it almost looks like we're lining up for biblical proportions. And that's a pretty big deal. Satanists in our capitals, more war in the Middle East. What's next? Guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on today's video. God bless.